A Ukrainian defense official said today that the situation in Mariupol is difficult and hard. In fact, the port city on the Sea of Azov is surrounded and under constant bombardment by Russian forces. There's little food or water left for those who remain, and little ammunition for the Ukrainian forces. Meantime, atrocities committed by Russian troops continue to be unearthed across the region surrounding Kyiv. Amna Navaz begins our coverage.
This morning, a familiar routine for residents near Kyiv: assess the damage and clear the debris from overnight blasts. Those explosions caught on security camera, reportedly some of the most powerful since Russian troops diverted forces from the Ukrainian capital earlier this month. The latest attack came shortly after Russia announced that the Moskva, its flagship in the Black Sea Fleet, sank while being towed for damages. A ceremony was held today to remember the historic cruiser.
Even for those who have not been there, Moskva was a symbol for everyone, symbol of our power, our hope, the revival of the fleet in the 90s. It is a symbol of our engineering and scientific achievements, force of our arms.
Ukrainian leaders took credit for its destruction, and U.S. officials today confirmed to PBS NewsHour 2 Ukrainian missiles led to the sinking. The Russian Defense Ministry rejected that narrative, but still promised a response to Ukrainian attacks, including another strike they said they carried out last night.
The number and scale of missile strikes against targets in Kyiv will increase in response to any terrorist attacks or sabotage committed by the Kyiv nationalist regime on the Russian territory.
Meanwhile, some 120,000 residents still remain in an almost unrecognizable Mariupol. Mikhail now lives in a garage with his wife and is trying to get out of the city.
We came to see our daughter, and the bombing started. We got in a basement, but my wife can barely walk.
With the war entering its 51st day, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky addressed the country and the world last night, commending his people for withstanding weeks of brutality and pushing for tougher sanctions against Moscow.
These 50 days showed me world leaders in a different way. The countries are different. I have seen great generosity of those who are not rich themselves. I have seen extraordinary determination by those who world leaders usually didn't take seriously.
For an on-the-ground view from Ukraine and more on the increasingly dire humanitarian crisis, I'm joined by David Beasley. He is the executive director of the World Food Program. He joins us now from Lviv. David Beasley, welcome back to the NewsHour. Thank you for making the time. I want to begin with Mariupol, where we just heard in the report the situation grows worse by the day. You've been trying to get food aid into the city. Have you had any luck getting access to Mariupol?
We do not have the access we need. There's no way people are not starving to death. We're trying every way we can to sneak it in, whatever it takes, but the access is denied. And we're asking, give us the access, allow us to do what we do as impartial and neutral to reach the innocent victims of this war.
Just to clarify, when you say you don't have access, are your trucks, your folks on the ground, are they being actively blocked by Russian troops from going in?
We are not allowed to go in. That's the bottom line. We've got the trucks, we've got the vehicles, we have the food. We just need the access. It isn't any more complicated than that.
So tell me what it would take to get that access, and what other cities do you need to get to that you haven't been able to get to yet?
Well, particularly in the eastern side of Ukraine, where several cities are blocked, or if we can get the access we need, we can move the food supplies in. I mean, it's a war zone. We understand it's complex. But you know, we work 80% of our operations are in war zones, areas of conflict. We have experience in how to do this. We know how to do it in such a way that we reach innocent people. So we're just asking, please give us the access we need.
So who needs to grant that access? Who are you making that request to?
I've already written and spoken to Russian leadership about this, and we're saying, please, we need it now. People are starving.
And have you gotten any response or any indication from them that that access will be granted anytime soon?
No.
If you don't get in with that food and water aid, tell me about the circumstances on the ground. What are people facing?
People don't get food and water, they die. And so the question is whether the Russian forces are providing food, but I don't know, because we don't have the access, and this is what we do.
Hey, David, I have to ask you, we've spoken on so many occasions when you're in many different nations trying to get aid to people who need it. You sound incredibly frustrated right now. Is this like any other situation you've been in trying to get that food and water aid to people?
You know, we've run this situation in times before, whether it's in Syria or Ethiopia or Afghanistan, but we keep pounding the pavement, we keep pounding the doors, and usually we'll find a breakthrough. It's now day 51 and we don't have a breakthrough. And so we're going to continue to do everything we can. We're not going to give up on these people. We're not going to do that. We're going to keep jumping up and down and hammering the message home as hard as we can until we get the access that we need.
You were able to make your way to Bucha, where we have seen reports previously. Of course, investigators are now looking into possible war crimes on the ground there. Tell us about what you saw.
I was just in Kiev and Bucha, and I've talked to many people on the streets of Bucha. And you've seen the pictures where the tanks were all over the city, but what you may not have seen, the devastation of war. I mean, just residential neighborhoods just wiped out, decimated. In fact, I stood at an orphanage, a home for 40 children. That home was just blown to pieces. Why? I heard from families, victims of this war, mothers that were shot, grandmothers that were shot, children that were shot. You just can't believe it. And I've seen a lot of bad stuff around the world, whether it's in Afghanistan or in Ethiopia or Yemen or Syria. This is as bad as it gets.
We've talked a lot about the millions of people who've already fled Ukraine, who've been able to get out. Are you able to reach any of them, provide support in neighboring nations?
The 4.5 or more million people that have left Ukraine are, you could say, really the lucky ones, because they're being met by the loving arms of strangers that are bringing them in, giving them shelter, giving them food. And it's remarkable to see that take place. And we're helping as much as we need to help in that particular refugee crisis. But inside, you've got 7 million people that are internally displaced, and we're working with the partners, the governments, to reach those people. Then you've got people that are stuck, for example, on the eastern side of Ukraine, in the midst of the battle of war, and we're trying to reach the most vulnerable, because that's what we can do, and that's what we do best. But it is very complex. Putting the food supplies, getting the trucks, getting the truck drivers, as you can imagine, because most of the truck drivers right now are on the battlefronts. And so we're working through all of these, but then you run into blockades. And then you think it's bad enough what's taking place inside Ukraine, but as you realize, Ukraine grows enough food to feed 400 million people around the world. So we're not talking about just Ukraine. We're talking about the entire world is going to pay a mighty big price because of this war.
And we've already seen, of course, the war has exacerbated shortages, food shortages. We know about an incredible amount of grain that comes from Ukraine and Russia both. Is that having an impact even on your ability to get those kinds of supplies that you need to deliver aid?
Yeah, I know. We feed, at the World Food Program, about 125 million people during the year. We buy 50% of our grain from Ukraine. We are already seeing an increase in fuel costs, food costs, shipping costs, to the extent of an additional operational cost per month for the World Food Program, $71 million. So $850 million impact on our operational expense. That means 4 or 5 million people less will get food. That's just our operations. That doesn't even impact what we're talking about, increase of food prices for everyone else around the world, and the possibility of the unavailability of food for people around the world. Because when you take the bread basket of the world, where now people are in bread lines, and they feed 400 million people, where's that food going to come from over the next 6 to 9 months? Because the farmers are on the front lines. They need to be in the fields right now. They need to be planting. They need to be putting out fertilizers. They need to be ready to harvest. And then we need for the ports to be open, because the ports are shut down. And it's through those ports that 400 million people are fed. And so it's going to have a global impact on everyone around the world, but especially the poorest of the poor. And so here's what's going to happen. I mean, if we don't reach the poorest of the poor in the countries that we're mostly concerned about, you're going to have famine. You're going to have destabilization of some nations, and you are going to have mass migration. And I can tell you, that's going to cost 1,000 times more than if we can get in advance and do it right.
That is David Beasley, Executive Director of the World Food Program, joining us from Lviv. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's good to be with you.